The Valkyrie survey vessel drifted through the empty space of an unremarkable spiral arm. Scout Commander Thisara sat in her command chair, watching the same boring stars pass by on her screen. She had been doing this job for 40 years. She had seen thousands of solar systems. Most of them were dead rocks orbiting dying suns. Nothing special, nothing worth remembering. Her species, the Valkyrie, had 4 hearts. Right now, all 4 of them were beating slowly, almost asleep. This mission was supposed to be simple. Fly through the outer regions of the galaxy, scan planets, record data, go home. The Galactic Concordance paid well for such work, but it was not exciting. The region she was surveying had been marked as barren in the galactic records for over 10,000 years. Ancient surveys had passed through here long ago. They found nothing. The area was too unstable. Too many dying stars. Too much radiation. No sensible species would evolve here. Thisara yawned, showing her 3 rows of small teeth. Her navigator, a young male named Cathol, was playing a game on his personal screen. The engineer was sleeping in the back. Nobody expected anything to happen. Then the sensors made a sound that Thisara had never heard before. It was not an alarm. It was something else. A kind of chiming noise that meant the ship had found something it could not classify. Something that did not fit into any known category. Thisara sat up straight. Her 4 hearts began to beat faster. "What is that?" she asked. Kethel dropped his game and looked at his instruments. His face, usually calm, changed to an expression of complete confusion. "Commander," he said slowly, "I think you need to see this." The main screen flickered and changed. It showed a planet, a beautiful, impossible planet. Blue oceans covered most of its surface, swirling with white clouds. Green and brown land masses spread across the parts that were not water. It was the 3rd planet from a medium-sized yellow star. "That cannot be right," Thisara whispered. She ran the scans again and again. Each time, the results came back the same. The planet was not just habitable, it was teeming with life. The atmosphere was rich with oxygen. The temperature was perfect for liquid water. There were forests, deserts, mountains, and rivers. There were animals in the oceans, birds in the sky, and creatures walking on the land. But that was not the shocking part. There were also signals. Electromagnetic radiation was pouring from the planet's surface. Radio waves, television broadcasts, satellite communications. The signals were chaotic and messy, overlapping and interfering with each other. But they were clearly artificial. They were clearly made by intelligent beings. "How many?" Thisara asked. Her voice was shaking. "How many of them are there?" Kethel's hands trembled as he worked the instruments. "Commander, this cannot be correct. The numbers do not make sense. Tell me." "The scans indicate billions. Over 7 billion intelligent life forms on a single planet." Thisara's 4 hearts all stopped at the same time. For a moment, she could not breathe. 7 billion. The Galactic Concordance had been exploring the stars for over 100,000 years. In that time, they had found life on about 12,000 planets. Most of it was simple: bacteria, algae, small creatures without minds. Intelligent life was much rarer. Only 300 worlds had produced beings that could think, speak, and build. And of those, only 47 had developed technology advanced enough to travel between stars. The largest civilization in galactic history had been the Asperth hive mind. At their peak, they had numbered 900 million individuals spread across 12 colony worlds. Scholars still considered that achievement almost miraculous. But 7 billion? On one planet? That was not supposed to be possible. Thisara forced herself to breathe. She made herself think clearly. "Show me their cities," she ordered. The screen changed to show detailed images of the planet's surface. Thisara saw cities unlike anything she had ever imagined. They were massive. They sprawled across the landscape, glittering with lights. Some of them held tens of millions of inhabitants each. Roads and rails connected them like blood vessels. Vehicles moved everywhere, on land, in the air, and on the water. The species had built enormous structures, towers that reached toward the sky, bridges that crossed wide rivers, walls that held back the sea, They had carved their mark into the very face of their world. They have been to space, Kethel said quietly. He pointed to objects orbiting the planet, satellites, thousands of them. And there are signs of landing sites on their moon. Their moon. They had already reached their moon. Thyssara tried to process what she was seeing. This species had developed technology, built civilizations, reached into space and multiplied to impossible numbers. And they had done it all without any help from the Concordance. Without any contact with galactic civilization. They had been alone this entire time. What do we do? Kethel asked. Thyssara thought for a long moment. Every instinct told her to run, to turn the ship around and leave this strange place behind. Something about this felt wrong. No species should be able to do what this one had done. No world should be able to support so much life. But running was not her job. Her job was to report what she found. Open a communication channel to the Concordance High Archives, she said. Priority transmission, highest classification. What should I tell them? Thyssara looked at the blue planet spinning slowly on her screen. She looked at its clouds and oceans, its forests and cities. She looked at the teeming billions that called it home. Tell them we have found something, she said. Tell them to send everyone. Scientists, diplomats, military observers. Tell them to send everyone they have. She paused, still staring at the impossible world before her. Tell them the galaxy has changed forever. And tell them we need to decide what to do about it. The message was sent. It traveled across the vast distances of space, passed through relay stations and communication hubs, and finally reached the great archives at the heart of the Concordance. Within hours, the entire galaxy knew about the blue planet and its impossible inhabitants. Within days, the first research vessels were on their way, and across 100,000 worlds, trillions of beings looked toward that distant spiral arm and wondered the same thing. Who were these creatures? Where had they come from? And what would happen when the two civilizations finally met? The galaxy held its breath and waited. Nobody knew it yet, but nothing would ever be the same again. Scholar Prime Veloquan had studied alien civilizations for 300 years. He had written books about the rise and fall of empires. He had developed theories about how intelligent species grew and changed over time. The Galactic Concordance considered him one of the greatest minds alive. None of that prepared him for Earth. He arrived with the first academic delegation 6 months after the initial discovery. His ship carried scientists from 12 different species. They had brought the most advanced instruments in the galaxy. They had prepared for months. They thought they were ready. They were wrong. The first shock came when they began studying the planet itself. Earth, as the natives called it, was not a gentle world. It was a death trap. The planet had an unstable crust. Great plates of rock floated on a sea of liquid fire beneath the surface. These plates moved constantly, crashing into each other, pulling apart, sliding underneath one another. The result was earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis. The land itself was not safe. The planet's axis was tilted at an angle to its orbit around its sun. This meant that different parts of the world experienced extreme changes in temperature throughout the year, summers that burned and winters that froze. Most galactic species required stable conditions to survive. Earth did not offer stability. The atmosphere was barely adequate. A thin layer of gases protected the surface from the deadly radiation of space. But this protection was weak. The planet's magnetic field, generated by its spinning metal core, helped block some of the radiation. But solar flares and cosmic rays still reached the surface regularly. And then there was the life itself. Earth was filled with predators. Creatures with sharp teeth and claws hunted other creatures. Parasites lived inside other animals, eating them from within. Bacteria and viruses caused terrible diseases. The oceans contained monsters. The forests hid killers. Even the smallest insects could carry deadly poisons. This world should not have produced intelligent life, said Dr. Keith Amara, a biologist from the solemn hegemony. The conditions are too harsh. The threats are too many. Any sensible evolutionary process would have failed. But the humans had not failed. Scholar Veloquan and his team spent weeks studying human history. The natives were surprisingly helpful. They had recorded everything about themselves. They had libraries full of books, databases full of information, and museums full of artifacts. They seemed almost eager to share their story. What the scholars found horrified them. The humans had faced extinction many times. About 70,000 years ago, a massive volcanic eruption had nearly wiped them out. The population had dropped to perhaps 10,000 individuals. Any other species would have died. The humans survived. They had lived through ice ages. Great sheets of frozen water had covered much of their world. Temperatures had dropped to deadly levels. Food had become scarce. The humans adapted. They made clothes from animal skins. They learned to use fire. They kept going. They had faced plagues. A disease called the Black Death had killed half of their population in some regions. Other diseases had swept through their communities again and again. The humans buried their dead and continued. But the most shocking discovery was not what the planet had done to them. It was what they had done to each other. The humans had been fighting wars since before they learned to write. They had developed weapons with terrifying creativity: swords, guns, bombs, poisons. They had killed millions of their own kind, sometimes for territory, sometimes for resources, sometimes for ideas. "Look at this," Dr. Kethmara said, showing Veloquan a record. They created weapons capable of destroying their entire civilization. Nuclear weapons, they call them, devices that could kill millions in a single flash, and they pointed these weapons at each other. Veloquan studied the record with growing disbelief, but they did not use them. They did use them, twice, on populated cities. Then they built more, thousands more, enough to destroy their world several times over. Then how are they still here? Dr. Kethmara's scales shifted to a color that indicated confusion. They chose not to destroy themselves. They came close, many times, but at the last moment, they always stepped back. This made no sense to Veloquan. Every model of civilizational development suggested that a species with such weapons would inevitably destroy itself. The mathematics were clear. The probability of survival was nearly zero. Yet the humans were still here. 7 billion of them. Building, growing, reaching for the stars. Veloquan spent another month studying. He read their literature. He watched their historical records. He interviewed their scientists and leaders. He tried to understand how this impossible species had survived. The answer, when he finally found it, was simple and terrifying. The humans did not survive because they were lucky. They did not survive because their world was kind. They survived because they refused to die. When disaster came, they fought back. When enemies attacked, they defended themselves. When disease spread, they developed medicine. When the world tried to kill them, they changed the world. They were not passive survivors waiting for danger to pass. They were active, aggressive. They met every threat with determination and creativity. They lost battles, but they won wars. They fell down, but they got back up. And they never, ever gave up. Veloquan wrote his report to the concordance. He chose his words carefully. He knew that what he was about to say would change everything. "We have studied the human species extensively. Our findings are deeply troubling. This is not a species that evolved under normal conditions. This is a species that was forged in fire. Their world tried to destroy them, and they conquered it instead. Their own nature led them to fight each other, and they survived their own violence. They are not simply survivors. They are something else entirely." He paused, considering his next words. "They are the thing that survives the survivors. Every species in the concordance reached the stars because the universe allowed it. The humans reached the stars because they demanded it. We should be very careful about what happens next." The report was transmitted to every world in the concordance. And across the galaxy, people began to understand that humanity was not just another species. Humanity was something new, something different, something that had never existed before. The question was, what did that mean for everyone else? The Concordance Council had not held an emergency session in 11,000 years. The last time had been during the Great Silence, when the Asperth hive mind had collapsed and left a quarter of the galaxy without stable government. That crisis had taken centuries to resolve. This crisis felt bigger. The council chamber was vast. It floated in space, far from any star, a massive structure designed to hold representatives from every major species in the galaxy. Today, every seat was filled. Ambassadors, military leaders, scientists, and philosophers had come from across known space. They had all read the reports. They had all seen the images. They all knew why they were here. Ambassador Krethani of the Solemn Hegemony spoke first. His species was known for their military strength. They had conquered 3 neighboring systems before joining the Concordance. They understood power. "Let us not pretend this is a normal first contact situation," he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes showed fear. "We are dealing with a species unlike any we have ever encountered. They split the atom before they achieved spaceflight. They weaponized nuclear power against themselves. They built enough weapons to destroy their entire world. And they are still here." He looked around the chamber. "Any species that can survive its own worst nature is dangerous. We must consider military options." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Military action against a newly discovered species was almost unheard of. The Concordance believed in peaceful contact, in slow integration, in careful diplomacy. But the humans were different. Military Executor Thoven stood next. His scales were dark blue, almost black. He was the commander of the Concordance Defense Forces. His job was to protect the galaxy from threats. "I have analyzed human military capabilities," he said. "They are primitive by our standards. Their fastest ships cannot approach light speed. Their weapons are chemical and nuclear, nothing compared to plasma technology. In a direct confrontation, we would win easily." Relief began to spread through the chamber. But Thoven was not finished. "However," he continued, "I have also analyzed their rate of technological development. They invented powered flight just over a century ago. Within 50 years, they landed on their moon. Within another 50, they had space stations, satellite networks, and probes leaving their solar system." He displayed charts showing the data. "At their current rate of advancement, they will match our technology within 200 years. They will surpass us within 500. And that assumes they do not accelerate further." The chamber fell silent. 500 years was nothing. Many of the species present had lifespans longer than that. Many of the civilizations represented had existed for tens of thousands of years. 500 years was tomorrow. "There is more," Thoven said. "I have studied their wars. They are extremely creative when it comes to conflict. They develop new weapons, new strategies, new tactics at an alarming rate. Every war teaches them something. Every defeat makes them stronger. If we fought them today and won, I believe they would learn from the experience. They would adapt. And the next fight would be much harder." The Hive Mind Collective of Aspirith spoke next. They communicated through a single drone, a small insectoid creature that carried the thoughts of billions. "We have attempted to model human behavior," the drone said in its flat, mechanical voice. "We have failed. They do not behave like any species in our database. They are not consistently aggressive or peaceful. They are not consistently logical or emotional. They hold contradictory beliefs at the same time. They can be kind and cruel within the same moment." The drone paused. "We call this multi-rationality. They do not follow one set of rules. They follow many sets of rules, switching between them as needed. This makes them unpredictable. We cannot anticipate their actions. We cannot calculate their responses. They are, in a mathematical sense, chaotic." This news disturbed the chamber even more than the military analysis. The galaxy ran on prediction. Trade agreements, diplomatic treaties, economic planning all depended on being able to forecast what other species would do. A species that could not be predicted was a species that could not be trusted. Finally, the eldest member of the council spoke. First Light of Morning was a crystalline being. Her species did not have bodies in the normal sense. They were living minerals, crystal formations that somehow thought and felt. First Light had been alive for 300,000 years. She remembered events that other species knew only from ancient records. "You are all missing the point," she said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes, beautiful and strange. "You look at the humans and see a threat. You see danger. You see a species that might one day harm us." She pulsed with soft light. "But you do not see what they truly are. Every species in this chamber, every civilization in the concordance. We all reached the stars because our worlds were kind to us. We evolved on planets that protected us, that fed us, that allowed us to grow. We are the children of gentle parents. The light inside her shifted colors. The humans are not like us. Their world was not kind. Their world tried to kill them every day. And instead of dying, they conquered it. They did not just survive, they thrived. They built civilizations that should be impossible. They reached for the stars when they should have been crawling in the dirt. She looked around the chamber. The question is not whether they are dangerous. Of course they are dangerous. Everything that survives what they survived is dangerous. The question is, what does their existence mean for us? The chamber waited. It means the universe is not what we thought it was. It means that survival is not about finding safe places to hide. It means that somewhere out there, in the chaos and violence and struggle, there is a species that refused to accept limits. And now that species is looking up at the stars, looking for us. First Light's crystals hummed. We must decide who we want to be when they find us. Do we want to be enemies? Do we want to be teachers? Do we want to be friends? We must choose, and we must choose wisely. Because whatever we decide, the humans will respond. And if there is one thing I have learned from studying them, it is this. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They always respond. The council debated for 3 more days. In the end, they chose to make contact. Carefully, cautiously, with hope that this strange species could become an ally rather than an enemy. But deep in their hearts, everyone in that chamber knew the truth. The galaxy would never be the same. Thisara had never expected to see Earth again. After her discovery, she had returned home to her quiet life of survey work. She had given interviews. She had received medals. She had become famous across the galaxy as the scout who found humanity. But fame did not last. After a few years, people stopped asking about her. New discoveries, new scandals, new events took over the news. She went back to scanning empty star systems and writing boring reports. Then the Concordance Council called her name. They wanted her to lead the first contact delegation. She, Thisara, a simple survey scout with no diplomatic training and no experience with alien species. She thought it was a joke at first. Then she thought it was a punishment. Finally, she understood. The council was afraid. Everyone who had studied humanity was afraid. They needed someone who had seen the humans first, someone who understood that fear but could push past it. They needed someone brave enough to walk into the unknown, or maybe they just needed someone expendable. Either way, Thisara accepted the mission. The delegation traveled to Earth in a ship designed to impress. It was huge, elegant, and filled with the best technology the Concordance could offer. The humans would see it and understand that they were dealing with an advanced civilization. That was the plan anyway. The humans detected them before they even reached the outer planets. Within hours of entering the solar system, the delegation began receiving signals. At first, Thisara thought they were warnings, military challenges, demands to identify themselves. She was wrong. The signals were greetings. The humans were broadcasting music, mathematical formulas, images of their art, recordings of their languages. They were not preparing for war. They were preparing for a party. They know we are here, said one of the diplomats, a Velkari elder named Torshan. They know we are alien, and their response is to send us songs? Thisara watched the signals flood into their ship. She saw paintings and sculptures. She heard orchestras and rock bands. She read mathematical proofs and poetry. They are introducing themselves, she said quietly. They want us to know who they are. The delegation landed outside a human city called New York. Millions of humans lived there, packed together in towers of glass and steel. The streets were crowded. The noise was constant. It was overwhelming. But the humans had prepared a welcome. They had cleared a space near a large building with flags from many nations. Crowds lined the streets, held back by barriers. They were not screaming in fear. They were cheering. Some of them held signs. Welcome to Earth. We come in peace. Take me to your leader. Thisara did not understand all the words, but she understood the feeling. These people were excited. The first meeting took place inside a building called the United Nations. Representatives from human governments had gathered there. They sat in rows wearing formal clothes, watching with curious eyes as the alien delegation entered. Thisara had prepared a speech. It talked about the concordance, about galactic history, about the hope for peaceful relations. She had practiced it many times. She never gave it. The moment she stepped up to speak, a human leader raised his hand. "Before you begin," he said, "we have questions, many questions, if you don't mind." Thisara hesitated. This was not how first contact was supposed to work. The advanced civilization was supposed to explain things. The new species was supposed to listen and learn, but the humans did not seem to know this protocol. "What questions?" she asked. The flood began. "How does faster-than-light travel work? How many species are in the galaxy? How old is the concordance? What is your government like? Do you have religion? Do you have art? Do you have families? What do you eat? How do you communicate? Why did you come here? What do you want from us?" The questions came from everywhere. Scientists, politicians, reporters, ordinary citizens. They asked about physics and philosophy, about economics and entertainment, about everything and anything. Thisara tried to answer. So did the other members of her delegation. But for every question they answered, 10 more appeared. The humans were not satisfied with simple explanations. They wanted details. They wanted to understand. During a break in the formal meetings, a human approached Thisara. She was a scientist, a woman named Dr. Elena Vasquez. She had dark hair, kind eyes, and a smile that seemed genuine. "You're afraid of us," Dr. Vasquez said. Thisara's skin changed color, showing her surprise. Humans were not supposed to be able to read Velkari emotions. "Yes," she admitted. "We have studied your history. We know what you are capable of." Dr. Vasquez nodded slowly. "We know too. We've lived with that knowledge for a long time. We've seen the worst of ourselves. We've stood at the edge of destruction and looked into the darkness. Then you understand our concern." "I do." The human paused. "But I've also seen the other side. I've seen people risk their lives to save strangers. I've seen doctors walk into war zones to help the wounded. I've seen artists create beauty in the darkest times. I've seen ordinary people do extraordinary things because they believed it was right." She looked up at the stars visible through a window. "We've been waiting for this moment since we first looked up at the sky. We always wondered if we were alone. We hoped we weren't. We dreamed of meeting others, of learning from them, of becoming part of something bigger than ourselves." Dr. Vasquez turned back to Thisara. "We're not perfect. We know that. We've made terrible mistakes. We'll probably make more. But we're also capable of amazing things. We can change. We can grow. We can be better." Her voice became soft. "Give us a chance. That's all we ask. Give us a chance to show you who we can be." Thisara looked at this human, this representative of a species that had survived everything the universe could throw at it. She saw hope in those eyes. Real, genuine hope. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Thisara felt her fear begin to fade. "I will tell the concordance what you have said," she replied. "I will tell them about your questions, your curiosity, your hope. I cannot promise what they will decide, but I will tell them." Dr. Vasquez smiled. "That's enough. That's a start." Thisara returned to the concordance with her report. She told them everything she had seen and heard. She told them about the questions and the songs and the hope. And for the first time in galactic history, the response was not analysis or concern. It was hope. 50 years had passed since first contact. The galaxy had changed in ways that nobody could have predicted. Trade routes that had existed for thousands of years were now outdated. Political alliances that had lasted for centuries had been rewritten. Technologies that had been considered perfect were now considered primitive. And at the center of it all were the humans. They had spread across the stars like fire through dry grass. Human colonies appeared on dozens of worlds. Human ships traveled every major trade route. Human voices could be heard in every market, every spaceport, every diplomatic chamber. Some species found this terrifying. The expansion was too fast, too chaotic, too uncontrolled. Humans did not follow the careful growth patterns that other civilizations used. They did not wait for permission. They did not ask if they were ready. They simply went. They are everywhere, complained Ambassador Crethani at a concordance meeting. His scales had turned gray with age, but his voice was still strong. We cannot walk through our own stations without hearing their languages. We cannot conduct business without dealing with their merchants. They have been part of galactic civilization for only 50 years, and already they act like they own it. Others saw things differently. Dr. Velo Kwan, the scholar who had first studied human history, had spent decades working alongside human scientists. He had watched them solve problems that had puzzled galactic researchers for centuries. They think differently than we do, he explained to his students. When we encounter a problem, we study it, we analyze it, we try to understand it completely before we act. The humans do something else. They try things, they experiment, they fail, and then they try again. They are not afraid of mistakes. This approach had led to breakthroughs that amazed the galaxy. Human engineers had improved the standard faster-than-light engine. They had reduced travel times by a factor of 12. Journeys that once took months now took weeks. Journeys that took weeks now took days. The galaxy had become smaller, more connected, more alive. Human doctors had developed treatments for diseases that had killed aliens for thousands of years. The crystalline plague, which had slowly destroyed the bodies of mineral-based beings for ages, was now curable. A human researcher named Dr. James Chen had found the solution in 3 years, working in a small laboratory with limited resources. "How did you do it?" the crystalline beings had asked him. "I tried everything that seemed stupid," he replied with a smile. The smart approaches had already failed. Human artists had created works that moved beings across the galaxy to tears. Their music combined sounds in ways that alien composers had never imagined. Their paintings used colors and shapes that seemed impossible. Their stories explored emotions that other species had forgotten they could feel. But it was not the technology or the art that changed things the most. It was the philosophy. The concordance had always operated on a principle of careful stability. Growth was slow and controlled. Innovation was tested for centuries before being adopted. The goal was survival through caution. The humans called this stagnation. They had different words that did not translate well into most galactic languages. Progress, ambition, growth, potential. They believed that standing still was the same as falling behind. They believed that safety without advancement was just a slow death. "You have been doing the same things for 100,000 years, a human diplomat said at a concordance meeting. "Your technology has barely changed. Your societies have barely changed. Your thinking has barely changed. Don't you want more? Don't you want to become something greater than you are?" The question sparked debates that lasted for years. Some species agreed with the humans. They began to experiment, to change, to grow. Other species rejected the human philosophy. They clung to the old ways, the safe ways, the proven ways. But nobody could ignore the results. Worlds that adopted human ideas flourished. Their economies grew. Their populations expanded. Their people reported feeling something that had been missing for centuries: excitement about the future. The humans brought problems too. They could not help it. Their conflicts followed them across the stars. Human factions argued with each other, competed with each other, sometimes fought with each other. Their politics were messy and loud. Their debates could turn into shouting matches. Their disagreements could turn into crises. "They are exhausting," admitted First Light of Morning at what she knew would be her final council meeting. She had lived for over 300,000 years. Soon she would enter the long silence, the final rest of the crystalline beings. They argue about everything. They question everything. They never accept that something is impossible simply because it has never been done. She paused, her crystal body pulsing with soft light. And yet, they are also wonderful. They look at a dying star and ask how to save it. They find a species on the edge of extinction and refuse to let them go. They meet beings who have given up hope and somehow restore it. The council chamber was silent, waiting for her final words. "When we first discovered humanity, the galaxy went silent. We were afraid. We did not know what these strange creatures would bring. Would they destroy us? Would they save us? Would they change everything we knew?" First Light's light grew brighter. 50 years later, I have my answer. They brought all of it. They brought destruction and creation. They brought chaos and order. They brought tragedy and hope, because that is what they are. They are not a single thing. They are everything, all at once, all the time. She turned to face the human delegation, who sat among the other species as equals. You asked us to give you a chance. We did. And you have shown us something we had forgotten. You have shown us that the universe is not a place to survive. It is a place to live, to grow, to become. The chamber remained silent. The silence has ended. Not just the silence of fear, but the silence of stagnation. The silence of a galaxy that had stopped dreaming. Her crystal form began to dim as the long silence approached. You taught us to dream again. You taught us to reach for things we thought were impossible. You taught us to sing. First Light of Morning spoke her final words. The galaxy was silent once. Now it sings, and the song is beautiful. She faded into stillness, her long life complete. Around her, the council rose to their feet. Humans and aliens stood together, united in a moment of respect and wonder. Outside the chamber, across 100,000 worlds, trillions of beings looked up at the stars with new eyes. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed it. And the song was only beginning.